John Patrick Field was about to take his last breath. Suitably, the hospital room was packed. Dad loved to be surrounded by people, especially family, and we have a big one. My beloved mum, 3 sisters, 3 brothers, and multiple cousins and aunties were at the bedside for the great man. Although he was only 66, this moment had been a while coming. He'd managed to survive a massive heart attack when he was just 36, and in the years leading up to May 7, 1998, when we gathered at Blacktown Hospital in Sydney's West, he'd been afflicted by 2 strokes. It had been clear for the previous week or so that the second would be the widowmaker. It had cost the most gloriously verbose and life-affirming human I've known the ability to speak more than a few words, and, seemingly, his desire to live. "Good place for me," he muttered haltingly as we drove by Sydney's Rookwood Cemetery one day. It was unthinkable. The most gregarious soul and a giant of a personality, Dad commanded every room, charming and sometimes intimidating people from all walks of life. He was hilarious, whip-smart, irreverent, and irrepressible. It was hard to come to terms with the idea that he had led his last sing-along and given his last speech while wielding a bottle of red wine at one of the scores of gatherings he hosted at our family home. But here he was, no longer in the frame of a first-grade rugby forward and Olympic standard rower he once had been, though still an imposing physical presence, in the throes of finally, uncharacteristically, giving up the ghost. As we watched, counting every breath, Dad drifted off peacefully, prompting our priest and friend, Father Glynn, to step in and offer a prayer. However, the word of the Lord was apparently an invitation to Dad to extend his stay, and he sparked back into gear. After about a third round of this routine, my dear Auntie Murray Truman, Dad's sister, leaned in and whispered, "For God's sakes, Father, let him go." Of course, we wanted him to stay, but it was time. "His breathing is very thin," my sister Maria, a celebrated Sydney nurse, observed. The extended family moved back a little, providing Mum and us children a final chance to get close. Last words were uttered between sobs. We held our breath as he searched for one. Finally, we all had to exhale. Dad, or Hassels as we called him, was utterly motionless, his eyes shut. The medical staff nodded compassionately. They'd seen it many times before. A life had slipped out of the room. We looked at each other, speechless for the first time in Field family history. But as we contemplated Hassel storming through the gates of heaven, he decided an encore was necessary. Invoking yelps and gasps, Dad opened his eyes wide. My brother Patrick was convinced it was a resurrection. He plonked glasses on Dad's face. "He's come back," he hollered, witness to an apparent miracle. JP Field took a long gulp of air, not once, but 3 times before, I swear, I detected a grin on his face as he finally pulled down the curtain for good.